Hi and welcome to The Winning Factor. I'm Alan Aitken, and on this show each week we take a look at some upcoming races in Hong Kong and we try to isolate an aspect of the race that we might look back on later as having been a great path to having found the winner. Well, racing on Sunday at Sha Tin, and the first race we're going to look at is race 6. Our winning factor here, the map. Now, in terms of the chances here when we look across the field, I think there are quite a few, but the main ones look to be God of Dragon and London Hall. They both look near a win. Family Leader is an interesting runner here with the claimer Alfie Chan going on. And down near the foot of the field, Zach Purton's mount, Cheerful Star, is an interesting runner. Now, before we go any further, our winning factor here once again is the map, and now we're going to have a look at why. Now, this is a race devoid of leaders, basically. In fact, most of these horses, if they got their wish, they'd be sitting in midfield somewhere with nice speed on that they could run at late in the race. But of course, they can't all be in the same position in midfield. And also, this isn't a race that looks like it offers much in the way of that speed. Mr. Monty, he's a regular leader and going well ridden that way. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw positive tactics from Alfie Chan on Family Leader, who's often in the first 3 or 4 in his races anyway. Now, this pace is obvious to everyone, so I guess we could see some tactical changes, but that won't suit a horse like London Hall from a wider draw, so I'm inclined to drop him from our propositions. So we're looking for a horse who can benefit from that unusual style of map that we see in this race, and the horse that I'm most interested in is Cheerful Star from the Frankie Law stable, and he can help the turnaround that's going on with his trainer's season. We'll talk more about Frankie's season a little later, but first of all we're going to take a look at Cheerful Star's latest run. This is in race 240 at Happy Valley, and I want you to take careful note of the start. Matthew Chadwick bounces this horse out in the blue and white colours into a good position early. And if we had a look back at some of his earlier races in Hong Kong, that would not have been possible. He wasn't beginning cleanly, he wasn't able to take up a position, and that was most of last season that he had that problem. So here he was able to take up a position in a moderate pace, which he gets again on Sunday. And then later in the race, we see him in the straight. Chadwick has to wait for a run to appear, but Cheerful Star finds the line with a bit of gusto late in the piece, and I thought that was a particularly telling effort from him, and he looks like a coming winner off that. Now, his trainer, Frankie Law, he's been one of the big finds of the last 2 seasons, finishing second and then third to his old boss, John Size, in the Trainers' Championship, but this season he had a particularly slow start to the campaign. So here we have a graphic of how Frankie has begun each of his 3 seasons, and the wins per month down below, and you can see at the bottom of the graph his first year, 2017-18, when he came out all guns blazing, and second year he was a bit slower to get going, but he was still very prominent early. But this year he's been quite a bit slower, and only 6 wins up to the end of October. But his season looks on the mend now, Frankie Law. He's had 10 winners from his last 100 runners. He opened 2020 on Wednesday with a winning double, and I think he's definitely going to be a trainer to follow in the coming weeks. But the tip in race 6, Cheerful Star, his winning factor, the map. As I said earlier, in his first part of his Hong Kong career, he wasn't beginning that well and he couldn't be put into a position forward, but he's been much better lately. He's beginning better, and that's something Zach is going to be able to use to his advantage to put the horse into a race where a bit of tactical ability looks crucial. The other race we're going to take a look at is race 9, and our winning factor here, up in class off a win. Now, this looks the usual competitive style of field for a Class 2. Chifano has been in good form and he must be very close to breaking through for a win. I think Super Oasis has had some excuses and he's still trying to make his derby case. Easy Go, Easy Win bounced back to win last start in Class 3 and now returns to Class 2. And then there's Reliable Team down in the weights, and he's the horse I want to focus on the most. Well, Reliable Team has been exactly that, very reliable. He's had 4 wins and a placing from his 6 starts, and he rises from Class 3 to Class 2 here, and I guess that could be his acid test. But as we've highlighted on this show before, that's actually a very good angle to play in Hong Kong racing. Horses coming off a win into a higher class win at around about a rate of 19%. So they win more frequently than other last start winners, despite what is the perceived disadvantage of rising in class. And I think a reliable team fits the bill here. So let's take a look at what he's been doing in the lead up to this race, and they're both wins. Race 187, this is at Happy Valley, and you see on the heat map there was a strong pace in an early section of the race. He was forward as is usual and had to do that little bit of early work, and yet was strong enough at the finish to hold off the latecomers as they tried to run him down. So that was a brave, tough win, a better win certainly than it looked. Then in race 255, he comes to Sha Tin for the first time, and once again take a look at the heat map. This time a very different style of race, a fairly moderate pace early, the light blue sections there early in the race, and again he was up outside the leader and much better suited with that tempo, and he never really looked like being run down despite not posting any fancy margins. So even though he was up on the lead in both those races, a reliable team, slightly different requirements were asked of him in those races, and he responded to win both times. And I wouldn't be too surprised if we see him in a slightly different role again on Sunday. And the reason I think that is because this looks a sterner run race than perhaps it looks at first glance. And we've seen Classic Beauty trying to get to the front lately in fast run races. He hasn't been able to get there, but this time he has the 10-pound claimer on, probably not as much opposition for the lead, but if he gets any, I think with the lightweight he will persist for longer and make sure that there is some tempo to this race. And that might be the occasion for Vincent Ho to take the option of sitting in behind with reliable team rather than being one of the leaders, and maybe sit in third or fourth just behind them. So the tip in race 9, reliable team. His winning factor, up in class, off a win. Now there are two horses that qualify as up in class off a win here, he and Easy Go, Easy Win, but I think there's a little bit more upside to reliable team at this stage, and that gives him the edge. So that's it from the winning factor this week. Good luck on Sunday. We'll see you next time.